Welcome, traveler of dreams. I am the voice guiding you tonight, here to lead you toward a profound, tranquil slumber. Before we begin our journey, perhaps consider sharing a thought or a wish with me. Is there a particular tale you long to hear? I would be honored to know. Never did I imagine the most terrifying instant of my existence would unfold high above the vast Pacific, confined within a slender metal vessel. There was no escape, no sanctuary from the creeping dread, no hiding from the stark realization that sometimes the end of everything hovers far closer than we dare to believe. They say journeys transform you, that you return home utterly changed. I once dismissed that as mere lyrical exaggeration. Yet after the events aboard Flight 292, I now grasp it as the most profound truth I've ever encountered. But first, a small detail. Why I was even aboard that particular journey. I had just concluded a 6-month university cultural exchange. I swapped lives with a Japanese student. They came to my home in the States while I immersed myself in Osaka. The program was designed, I suppose, to expand our global perspectives. Or so my professor droned on in a lecture I barely heard. Yet truly, Japan reshaped me. Not in some predictable finding myself narrative, but in subtle, profound ways I hadn't anticipated. The pervasive tranquility, the meticulous order, the effortless grace with which people offered apologies, even for an accidental shared breath. Back in New Jersey, drivers blared their horns if you hesitated a fraction of a second at a green light. In Osaka, an elderly woman bowed deeply after I inadvertently brushed past her. I cherished every single moment, and the departure was a wrenching blow, far more painful than I'd ever imagined. I recall standing in the Kansai airport, gazing at the endless rows of vending machines, a fleeting thought whispering, what if I just stayed? But reality is unyielding. Diplomas don't materialize on their own. Opportunities don't simply appear for those who drift. So I reluctantly boarded the arduous passage home. Osaka to Honolulu, then Honolulu to Denver, and finally Denver to Newark. 20 grueling hours crammed into an economy seat. My neck ached relentlessly. My knees protested with agonizing spasms, all because I'd stubbornly refused to pay for a little extra space. That choice I now deeply regret, not for the immediate agony, but for the chilling sequence of events it unknowingly set in motion around me. The second segment, from Honolulu to Denver, proved to be the true ordeal. 9 relentless hours. It was the sort of flight that could make even the most robust individual feel as though their very bones had aged decades. My assigned spot was 42A, a window seat in the rear, uncomfortably close to the lavatories. One might assume such a location offers convenience, but quite the opposite. It became a constant parade, a perpetual queue of strangers, their breath brushing your ear, their bodies occasionally lurching into you during unexpected shudders of turbulence. I attempted to distract myself with those miniature in-flight screens, which seemed to possess an ancient, forgotten interface. Eventually, I settled on a random sci-fi thriller, featuring an actor who, it seemed, was perpetually cast in the same archetypal role. Mid-film, the cabin lights softened to that peculiar, deep blue glow, the universal signal for passengers to quiet down and attempt rest. I reclined, my eyelids heavy, whispering to myself that this endless journey would soon reach its conclusion. It was then that true unease began. It commenced as a hushed sound, a faint murmur. At first the tongue was unfamiliar to me, sharp, fractured syllables soon growing louder, steeped in palpable fear. Across the aisle, a diminutive woman, perhaps in her 60s, repeatedly jabbed at the call button above her seat, as if desperately signaling for help. The nearest flight attendant, a tall figure with a severe blonde bun and weary eyes, swiftly approached. "Ma'am, is everything all right?" The woman replied with a torrent of rapid, distressed words in Chinese. Mandarin, I suspected, though I was no linguist. Her voice fractured with what sounded like desperate pleas. The attendant attempted to communicate once more. "I don't speak, does anyone here speak Mandarin?" Heads emerged from behind seat backs, a mix of curiosity, irritation, and drowsiness. At last, the elderly woman gestured frantically towards the middle row directly beside her. 3 seats where a figure was hunched over in an utterly unsettling posture. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. I remember thinking, oh hell, something seriously wrong. Seconds later, she reappeared with that dreaded line I'd only ever heard in movies. Is there a medical professional on board? Sure, here you go. A doctor, a nurse, anyone with medical training. The cabin rustled awake. The blue lights made everyone look dead themselves, shadows hollowing out cheeks. A man in business class came rushing down. Older, white hair, glasses, wearing a polo with a tiny hospital logo stitched near the collar. He didn't waste time with introductions. Where is he? His voice was calm but firm. Authority without ego. The attendant pointed. The doctor leaned into the middle seats. Then everything shifted. Sir, can you hear me, sir? No response. He pressed 2 fingers against the man's neck, checked his watch, pressed again. Then he snapped his head up. I need help. Strong arms now. Not a request, a command. 2 guys immediately stood. A big black dude in a Mets hoodie and a younger guy with tattoos across his forearms. Tell us what to do. Lift him carefully. Lay him flat near the galley. The doctor's tone made even the most stubborn passengers obey without question. The 2 men pulled the slumped figure from a row. That's when I saw him. He looked empty. A man maybe in his 70s. Thin gray hair, wearing a navy windbreaker zipped halfway up. I'm here to help with any questions or tasks you have. How can I assist you further? They laid him down on the narrow strip of floor between the restrooms and galley. The doctor immediately started compressions. 1, 2, 3, breathe. 1, 2. The rhythm echoed in the hushed cabin. I'm here to assist with information, answer questions, or discuss various topics. If you have any questions or need help, feel free to ask. Don't do this. His voice cracked in this heartbreakingly genuine way that told me he wasn't just helping. He was personally desperate for a miracle. But the miracle didn't come. The doctor tried longer than I thought possible. Eventually, his arms slowed, his shoulders dropped. He checked the man's pulse for a final time, then quietly said, he's gone. No dramatic announcement, just truth. The cabin fell into an awful silence. This part shocked me more than anything. The flight attendants brought out a body bag, a real one. Black shine like cheap plastic. Zipper down the middle. I didn't even know commercial flights had those. Someone behind me whispered, Jesus, they really prepared for everything, huh? The doctor and the big guys helped place the man inside. The zipper sound. I still hear it sometimes when I try to fall asleep. After that, the attendants began rearranging passengers. Sir, ma'am, we're going to move you forward. All right, it's complimentary. Please, gather your things. Row after row around me emptied. Everyone from behind my row was taken toward the front. Everyone except me. I should have asked to move too. Should have said something, anything. But I didn't want to be that guy making a fuss during a crisis. Big mistake. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. There was no smell, nothing gruesome, but the weight of knowing a lifeless man was lying right behind my seat. It sat heavy on my chest like a boulder. I tried focusing on the screen in front of me, but every few minutes I'd feel this cold awareness creeping up my spine. I'd glance back, the shine of the plastic, the stillness, a silence. I couldn't shake the feeling that the air around me had changed, like the temperature dropped just a little. A flight attendant stopped beside me. Sir, I just want to say thank you for staying calm. We're really sorry we couldn't move you. Everything happened so fast. I nodded, but my voice felt trapped. Inside, nothing was okay. An hour later, turbulence hit. Bad turbulence. The kind where the plane dips and people gasp or grip the armrests. The lights flickered. A kid somewhere screamed. Even the attendants had to brace themselves, and the body behind me is shifted. Not much, just enough that the bag pressed lightly against the back of my seat. My fingers locked around the armrests. Another drop, another bump against my spine. My heart hammered so hard I thought it would burst through my ribs. I whispered under my breath, please stop, please stop. I wasn't talking to the plane. The row across from me still had one guy, thin, mid-30s, with messy brown hair and a laptop he'd closed hours ago. He looked back too. Dude, he whispered, eyes wide. Is that? Yeah, I whispered back. He shook his head slowly. Man, that's messed up. They should have put him somewhere else. Where? I said quietly. There's nowhere else. He thought about that. He realized I was right. We sat in silence for a long moment before he said, What's your name, man? If you need to switch seats later, we'll figure something out. Nobody should have to sit alone with you, no. I appreciated that more than he knew. Time stretched painfully slow. People slept. People sobbed quietly. People whispered prayers in languages I couldn't place. But I stayed awake, too aware, too alert. Every little sound made my nerves fire. A seat creaking, a bag shifting overhead, a faint hum of the engines. I kept imagining the zipper slowly opening. I knew it wouldn't. I'm not stupid, but logic means nothing when fear builds its own laws. At one point, a soft thud hit the floor behind me. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. When the captain finally announced our descent into Denver, the cabin practically exhaled. I've never heard silence sound relieved before. We hit the runway harder than usual. The jolt shook everything, and once again, the body shifted against my seat. That was the moment my chest tightened so hard, I felt tears burn behind my eyes. Not from sadness, from sheer adrenaline exhaustion. Once we reached the gate, paramedics boarded immediately. They unzipped the bag halfway, just enough to confirm the doctor's notes, and covered him again. A flight attendant approached me with a clipboard. Sir, we need your name. You were the closest passenger. We'll be offering a discount for your next flight. I nodded, gave my info. She touched my shoulder gently. I'm truly sorry you had to experience that. I didn't know what to say. I just wanted to go home. For weeks after, I couldn't sleep without hearing the zipper. I'd jolt awake imagining something shifting behind me. I developed a subtle fear of flying, something I never had before. Even now, years later, whenever I hear an overhead announcement during a flight, my stomach knots. People don't realize how fragile life is until they're stuck in the air with no escape, watching it slip out of someone else. It changed me. It stuck with me. And every time I think back to that flight, the same thought hits me. Maybe the scariest thing in the world isn't death itself. Maybe it's how quiet it is when it sits right behind you. I never thought I'd spend the A's leading up to Christmas working night shifts at a nearly empty airport. But life doesn't always care about what you plan. I had been living in Florida for about 7 months, trying to restart my life after a messy breakup back in Oregon. My ex Lena and I split fast enough that I packed my car with whatever fit and drove 3,000 miles until the humidity hit me like a wall and the ocean didn't look like ice water anymore. The airport job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. And for a guy trying to rebuild, sometimes that's all you can ask for. I worked at Horizon Drive Rentals, a smaller rental car desk tucked along the far end of the concourse, away from the big guys like Enterprise and Avis. On paper, it sounded important. In reality, it was me. A squeaky rolling chair and a computer so old it still hummed like it had a heartbeat. The night shift team was tiny. Jace, the shift lead, blunt, sarcastic, Florida-born and raised. Riley, the cafe worker across from us, early 20s, always tired, always microwaving something with cheese. Elwood, one of the TSA night guys. Big dude, but soft-spoken. Always chewing gum like it was his life support. We weren't exactly a family, but working nights at a quiet airport does weird things to people. You start to rely on whoever's awake when you are. It was December 19th, a Thursday, a little after 3 a.m. The entire place felt like the world forgot it existed. Most travelers were asleep in hotel beds, not dragging suitcases under fluorescent lights. I was sitting behind the rental counter, spinning a pen between my fingers, scrolling through old basketball highlights with the sound low. The holiday music playing overhead was slow, syrupy, like the speakers were tired too. Riley leaned against the cafe counter and called out, "Hey, You want this mac and cheese? I made too much, and I'm not throwing it away. I glanced up. You know you make too much every night, right? She shrugged. That's called tradition. I stood and walked over. Give me the bowl. I haven't eaten since like yesterday. You say that like it's a flex, she said, handing it over. I was about to respond when the sliding doors leading to the outside rattled. Just a bit. Not a lot. Just enough for me to notice. It wasn't windy. There was no storm. No one was outside. Did you hear that? Riley didn't even look. Probably the sensor glitching again. The building's old, man. She wasn't wrong. Most of this terminal was built decades ago, patched with renovations that never really matched. But something felt off. I returned to my desk, bowl in hand, and sat. The pen I'd been spinning rolled off the desk and hit the floor. I bent down to pick it up when I heard it. A faint, distant hum, low, steady, getting louder. I straightened up slowly. The hum turned into a rumble, then into something deeper, heavier like an engine. And it was getting close, way too close. I looked toward the doors again. The glass was vibrating. Not a lot, but enough that the Christmassy decal stickers fluttered at the edges. My stomach tightened. Jace? I called out louder than I meant to. He looked up from behind the counter beside me. You hear that? He listened. The rumble grew louder. His eyes narrowed. That's not a plane. His voice carried something new. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. The kind that hits your chest before your ears. Back up, I said instinctively. Jace didn't argue. Riley looked confused, but she moved behind the cafe island counter. Elwood, halfway down the terminal, paused mid-step and turned toward the noise. I felt the hairs on my arms stand up. The roar exploded. Lights from outside blazed through the glass. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. A frame twisted like tinfoil. Glass exploded like a wave. The truck didn't slow down. It only tilted slightly from the impact, then barreled straight across the floor, tearing through rows of chairs, skidding over wet floor signs, smashing a vending machine like it was made of cardboard. Someone screamed. I'm not sure who. Maybe it was me. My legs moved before my brain did. I dove over the counter, hit the floor hard, and scrambled beneath the desk. The truck kept coming. Metal screeched against tile. The air filled with dust, glass, and the awful sound of something way too heavy moving way too fast. Jace slid next to me, under the desk, breathing fast, eyes wide. Jesus Christ. I grabbed his arm. The truck slammed into something. Our counter. The impact rocked the entire desk like an earthquake. The monitor above us snapped off its mount and smashed beside me. A splinter of wood jabbed into my shoulder, and I yelled. The truck's engine sputtered, coughed, then quit. Sudden silence flooded the space. But silence didn't mean safety. Riley's shaky voice called from across the floor. Is everyone alive? I pushed myself out from under the counter, my ears ringing. Dust filled the air like fog. It was hard to breathe, hard to see. Chairs were scattered everywhere. Parts of the ceiling were hanging down. The doors were nothing but twisted metal and open winter air. The truck sat at an angle, its front end buried into what remained of the counters. My heart hammered. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. I'm here to help with information and provide support. If you're in an emergency situation, please make sure you call 911 or the appropriate emergency services number immediately. Stay safe. Why would someone drive a truck into an airport? Was it an accident? No one answered because none of us knew. I edged toward the truck, stepping over broken plastic and shattered glass. My shoulder throbbed, where wood was still embedded. But adrenaline drowned most of the pain. As I reached the driver's side, the man inside groaned. His eyes fluttered open. He looked right at me, and I'll never forget the fear in them. Not anger, not confusion, pure fear. Help me, he whispered. I touched the door handle. Sir, don't move. Emergency responders are. He was following me. His voice trembled, The man with the lights. He ran me off the road. My skin crawled. What lights? His hand lifted weakly, pointing behind me. Don't let him in. A cold wave ran through my spine. I turned around slowly. The busted entrance sat wide open. Nothing but the night beyond, except something flickered near the road. A pair of headlights, then another pair. Then they vanished like someone turned them off mid-glare or drove away without sound. I felt sick. Jace called out, "What's going on over there?" I stepped back from the truck. "We need to lock down the building," Riley stammered. "Lock it down?" Why would? Because I said, still staring at the empty darkness outside. He said someone chased him off the road. Elwood jogged over, still catching his breath. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. Another closer, Jace whispered. What the hell is that? I didn't answer because deep down in the pit of my stomach, I already knew something was coming toward us. Something that wasn't supposed to be there. Something the driver had tried desperately to escape. The glass fragments on the floor trembled. The air grew colder. And then a silhouette appeared at the broken entrance. Tall, still, almost unreal in the dim light. No face visible, just the outline of a man. I stepped back instinctively. "Sir," Lewid called out, "this area is closed. Please identify yourself." The silhouette didn't move, not an inch. Elwood reached for his flashlight and shined it. The beam hit the figure, but the light didn't land on a face. It landed on a mask, a smooth mirrored mask, reflecting the flashlight beam back at us like a glare from a chrome bumper. The figure tilted his head, deliberate. Riley whispered. The man lifted something in his hand, something metallic. Then he started walking toward us. Not running, walking, measured steps. No rush, no fear. I grabbed Jace's arm. Get behind something now. We scrambled behind what was left of the counters as the masked man crossed the debris field, like it wasn't even there. His boots crunched over glass. The driver in the truck sobbed. "Oh no, no, no. He followed me. He followed me." The masked man stopped 10 feet in front of the truck. Then he raised the metal object. It wasn't a weapon. It was a key fob. He pressed it. A distant beep sounded outside. Another engine roared to life. Another vehicle waiting. I felt ice run down my spine. The man tilted his head again. Then he said something. A single word. Low, rasped, impossible to misunderstand. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. Jace grabbed a broken chair leg and swung it, hitting the masked man in the shoulder. The man barely flinched, barely turned. I threw the closest thing I could grab, a fire extinguisher. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. I yelled, "Stop! Let him go!" The masked man didn't look back, didn't pause, didn't care. He dragged the screaming driver outside into the dark, as police sirens finally grew louder in the distance. By the time officers rushed in, by the time paramedics stepped over the glass, by the time we tried to explain what the hell just happened, the masked man and the driver were both gone. No footsteps, no tire tracks, no sound, just emptiness, and the cold December night. The police didn't believe most of what we said. Why would they? A truck crash was easy to understand. A masked man dragging someone into the dark without a trace, not so much. But the footage? That was worse. The security cameras caught the crash. They caught us diving for cover. They caught the dust, the smoke, the chaos. But the moment the masked man appeared, the footage flickered, glitched, skipped forward 47 seconds. Just enough time to erase everything. Just enough time to make us look insane. The airport reopened 3 days later. New glass, new doors, new paint. but some stains don't scrub out. Sometimes when I think about it, I remember the way the driver's voice cracked when he whispered, "Don't let him in." And sometimes late at night when I'm alone near a window, I swear I hear a car idling somewhere far away, waiting, searching, hunting for whoever's next. I never thought a job that smelled like burnt coffee and recycled air would ever change the way I sleep at night. But that's exactly what happened in the winter of 2019. Long before the world shut down. Long before airports became ghost towns for reasons nobody predicted. Back then, I wasn't a pilot or a flight attendant or anybody important. I was just a graveyard shift airport shuttle driver. One of those guys hauling tired travelers between terminals and long-stay parking lots at Ravenon International. A min-sized, always busy American airport tucked just off Highway 41. My name, Jalen Crowder. Not famous, not special, just a dude trying to pay bills, take care of my mom, and stay awake during 2 a.m. loops around the terminals while listening to late-night talk radio. Airports have their own heartbeat at night. A slow, steady hum like the whole world is sleeping. Except you. But that winter, the heartbeat skipped, and then it stopped. I still remember unloading a family of 4 at Terminal B around 1:20 a.m. But Dad kept apologizing because his kids spilled Fruit Loops all over my shuttle floor. "Man, don't even sweat it," I told him, rushing crumbs with my boot. "I've had worse. I once had a dude throw up a whole burrito back there." He laughed. His wife laughed. Normal night, normal people. That's the thing about horror. It never walks in wearing a mask. It shows up quietly, calmly, like it already knows it's gonna win. After dropping the family, I pulled into the driver staging lot behind Terminal D. That's where I saw him. Another airport cabbie leaning against a dark sedan. Smoking a menthol? Face lit up by the glow of the cigarette. His name was Rogan Malik, though I didn't know it yet. He nodded at me. I nodded back. That's how we talk in the night shift life. Simple, quiet. Everyone too tired to be extra. "Cold as hell out here," he said. "Yeah," I replied, rubbing my hands. "Air's bitin' tonight." He chuckled. "Air's always bitin' when you work nights." We didn't know each other, but night shift workers share a weird camaraderie. Same ghosts, same empty parking lots, same damn vending machines that always eat your dollar. I'm here to help with questions or provide information you might need. If there's anything else I can assist you with, please feel free to ask. I grew up in a rough neighborhood. My mom worked double shifts at a diner. I worked at a 24-hour gas station through high school, then drove ride shares late nights through college. When you live that life, you learn to spot certain things. People who are hiding fear, people who are too calm, people who want something from you, people who want to hurt someone. Rogan, he didn't fit any of those categories. He just looked tired, like all of us, which is why what happened made no damn sense. Around 2:40 a.m., dispatch radio crackled. "Shuttle 12, we got a stranded cab at Lot 4C. Lot 4C was the farthest corner of long-term parking, a dead zone with barely any lighting." "Copy that," I answered. On the way there, I passed Terminal D again. Rogan's spot was empty. Guess he got a fare, I thought. I'd barely seen 3 rides all night. I turned into the long-stay structure. Gray concrete, flickering lights. The whole horror movie starter pack. I said out loud, "Man, this place is creepy as hell," just to hear another voice. That's when I spotted the cab, a black sedan with airport taxi markings. Driver's door wide open, headlights still on, casting long shadows between the pillars. I parked my shuttle and stepped out. "Anybody need help?" My voice echoed. I approached carefully. You learn not to assume the best on night shifts. That's when I saw it. "Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors." It was slightly popped, not open, just unlatched, like someone tried and failed to lift it. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed at me to back up, get help, leave. But another part of me, the part raised by a mother who handled emergencies without flinching, that part reached forward. I lifted the trunk, and everything inside me went cold. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. The kind of frenzied attack you see on crime shows. Except this wasn't TV. It was real. and it smelled like iron. Jesus Christ, I whispered, stumbling back. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. I remember the dispatcher asking, "Sir, is the attacker still nearby?" I looked around the empty, cold cement structure, and for the first time that night, I didn't feel alone. I don't know, I said. Within minutes, the place filled with squad cars, airport police, and paramedics. One officer pulled me aside. "You the one who called it in?" "You touch anything?" "Just the trunk. I wanted to see if someone was hurt." The look on his face changed. The kind of look that says you just made yourself a suspect. "Don't look at me like that. I didn't touch him." "We'll figure that out," he said. They took my name, my badge number, everything. I wasn't arrested, but I wasn't free either. A detective in a heavy brown coat approached. He looked like someone who'd seen too many bodies to be surprised by another. "I'm Detective Roar," he said. "Mind telling me what you saw?" I told him everything. When I mentioned seeing Rogan earlier that night, Roar's eyebrow lifted. "Describe him. Anyone else around him?" He looked disappointed. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. My mom asked, "You okay, baby?" I lied. "Yeah, just tired." I showered twice, trying to wash the smell of the parking garage off me. 3 nights later, another cab driver vanished. His name was Soren Hale, a quiet guy from Montana who worked nights to pay off debt. Always offered gum. He disappeared after picking up a fare near the rental car center. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. Sure, here it is. And I was the last person who'd spoken to Rogan, which meant the police weren't leaving me alone. Detective Roar had me in an interrogation room 2 days later. He dropped a photo in front of me, a knife, a strange old-looking military blade with a leather grip. "This was left under Rogan's front seat," he said. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. Serial killers usually stick to one type of weapon, right? Roar stared at me, expression unreadable. We're not calling him a serial killer, but we both knew. He didn't believe that. Airport security found something odd. Both drivers had received calls from the same payphone, located outside a closed-down diner near the employee entrance. Who uses a payphone in 2019? Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. He rubbed his temples. Yeah, but planned by who? 5 days later, I was put back on night shift. Had to pay rent. Had no choice. Around 3 a.m., I was looping near Terminal A when I spotted a man standing alone at the curb. Tall, gray suit, sandy hair, hands in pockets, not a suitcase in sight. He lifted one hand casually, directing me the same way someone hails a cab. Something about him made the hairs rise on my neck. I slowed, but didn't stop. He smiled, not friendly, more like entertained. He mouthed something. I swear it looked like. Next time a chill ran straight down my spine. I drove off, heart pounding. I reported it. Police searched. No man found, but I know what I saw. And I saw him again. 3 nights later, I parked near Terminal C to take a quick bathroom break. The lot was empty, or so I thought. When I came back out, the same man from before was standing by my shuttle, leaning on it, waiting. "Evening," he said, voice calm, polite, almost friendly. "You doing runs tonight?" I froze. "Sir, you need to stand back," I said. "No need for that," he smiled. "I just need a lift. You can call dispatch." "Oh," he said softly. "I don't like being on cameras." My throat tightened. He took one slow step closer, then another, hand sliding into his coat pocket. I didn't think. I just ran toward the terminal doors. Behind me, I heard footsteps quicken. "Jalen," he called. He knew my name. I sprinted through the sliding doors. As he reached the threshold, security noticed immediately. He turned, walked away calmly, disappeared between the cars like a shadow dissolving into darker shadow. Detective Roar interviewed me again. You sure it was him? I'm not guessing. He followed me. Roar looked frustrated. Security cams caught his shape, he said. Just his shape. No face, no ID, no plate numbers, nothing. Then he's still out there. Yeah, Roar said quietly. After that night, the airport changed protocols. More lighting, more patrols, no more blind spots. The murder stopped, but nobody was caught. Not a single suspect held. Just vanished like he was never real. 6 months later, I moved. Got a daytime job, tried to forget. But last year, while unpacking boxes in my new apartment, I found something taped under the driver's seat of my old Shuttle jacket. A small object wrapped in a napkin. My hands shook as I opened it. It was a key, a tiny old-fashioned brass key, attached to a note that said, "For the next time we meet." No explanation, no signature, just those words and the smell of airport gasoline. I haven't worn that jacket since, and I don't take airport jobs anymore. But every time I hear a plane overhead, every time I see a cab parked alone, I wonder if he's still out there waiting for another night shift driver who won't see him coming. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. I never planned on becoming the kind of person who freezes up at the sound of a boarding announcement. But life has a weird way of branding you early. The first time I ever stepped onto a plane, I was 9, a scrawny kid with a hand-me-down backpack and a head full of nightmares I didn't ask for. My mom kept saying, "Relax, buddy, you'll love it," while my dad pointed out every tiny thing outside the airplane window, like he was narrating a documentary. Meanwhile, my heart felt like it was trying to claw its way out of my chest. People always say you outgrow childhood fears. Mine just learned how to hide better. For most of my adult life, I avoided flying like it was a death sentence. I'd take buses cross-country, 12-hour trains, rental cars that rattled like they were held together with duct tape. I'm truly sorry to hear about the loss of your cousin Devin. Grief can be a challenging journey, and it's important to reach out for support when you need it. Please remember to take care of yourself and find comfort in those around you during this difficult time. Freak thing. Wrong place, wrong second, when my aunt called me crying so hard she couldn't get her words out. I knew I had to go home for the funeral. And because of work deadlines, meetings, last-minute nonsense, I only had a tiny window to get there, which meant I had no choice. I had to fly. By the time I reached the airport, my nerves were shot. I downed 2 drinks on the bar near gate 27, then another, then stared at my reflection in the metal napkin dispenser, trying to look normal. Spoiler, I didn't. The agent at the counter scanned my badge. "Wow, see," she said cheerfully. My stomach flipped. Hey, is there any chance, like literally any chance I can get an aisle? Even a middle seat? I'll sit next to a crying baby. I don't care." She frowned at her monitor. "Full flight, honey. You can ask someone to swap once you're on board, though. Nothing like begging strangers before takeoff." When I stepped onto the plane, the flight attendants greeted everyone with bright customer service smiles. But one of them, a tall guy with a shaved head and a whisper-quiet voice, gave me a quick look like he instantly clocked how terrified I was. My seat was 23F window. A big guy in work boots was already in the aisle seat. "Hey man," I said, trying to sound casual. "Any chance you'd want to trade?" "I'll take your seat. I just don't really do windows." He gave me a look like I had asked for his social security number. "I need the aisle." Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. A woman across the aisle leaned over, smiling. "You okay, sweetheart? You look white as a sheet." "Just don't like flying," I muttered. The man beside me snorted. "Brother, you picked the wrong day. Storms rolling up the coast. They're already talking about turbulence." My heart dropped straight into my shoes. We took off 20 minutes later. The second those engines roared, I closed my eyes and gripped the armrests so hard my knuckles throbbed. The climb always felt unnatural to me, like the plane was begging gravity to let it go just this once. The guy beside me said, "Damn, you really don't like this, huh?" "I'm doing great," I croaked. He laughed. "Sure you are." The flight attendants moved down the aisle with the drink cart. The one with the shaved head, his name tag said, Isco stopped when he reached me. "You holding up?" he asked softly.
You're doing better than you think.
He slid me 2 little bottles of Jack Daniels without charging me. "For the nerves? God bless you." He winked. "I'm here to help with any questions or information you might need. Please let me know how I can assist you further." My bottle tipped over. The lights flickered. A baby somewhere behind us wailed. "Told you," the guy in the aisle said, shaking his head. Another jolt, then a quick drop like an elevator, falling 1 floor too fast. People gasped. I swallowed a scream. A woman said sharply, "What was that?" A man answered, "Just rough air." "Relax," someone else whispered. Jesus Christ. The fasten seatbelt sign dinged on. Erisco grabbed his seat back to steady himself. "Folks, stay seated," he said, voice steady but tight. The plane lurched again, harder this time, and the overhead bins rattled like they were going to pop open. "Holy shit," someone yelled. Another drop, this one longer. My stomach slammed into my throat. The metal groaned like the entire plane was twisting in the air. "That's not normal," a man behind us said. "That's not normal." His wife snapped, "John, shut up." Then it got worse. The plane began shaking so violently my teeth clacked together. I grabbed the seat in front of me, digging my fingers into the seams. "Hold on," Erisco yelled. The plane bucked upward so suddenly that my head smacked the headrest. The scream tore down the length of the cabin, high, panicked, raw. A drink cart in the back slammed into the wall with a bang. People were crying, praying, shouting, "Oh God," over and over like a chant. Erisco tried to move down the aisle to help an older woman who was hyperventilating. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. When he fell back down, he staggered, dizzy, eyes unfocused. Another passenger grabbed his arm to keep him from collapsing. The man next to me muttered, "Oh, hell no. We're not making it." "Don't say that," I shouted. But that fear, his fear, hit me like a punch. Because he wasn't the only one thinking it. The pilot's voice came through the speakers, shaky, strained. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. We're experiencing severe turbulence. Please remain seated." His words cut out in static. "I'm here to help with any questions or information you need. If you have another request or topic you'd like to discuss, please feel free to ask." The man beside me took out his phone. "Oh God," I whispered. "Are you recording a goodbye video?" "No," he said, voice trembling. "I'm texting my kids." I shut my eyes so tight it hurt. For a moment, maybe 5 seconds, maybe a lifetime, I accepted it. The fear the future my family would have without me. The thought of my aunt still grieving Devon, now having to process me too. But then, like someone slowly turning down a dial, the shaking eased. It didn't stop instantly. Shudder by shudder, the groans of the cabin softened. The screams dwindled into sharp breaths and sniffles. 10 minutes later, the plane was gliding like nothing had happened. People began laughing, hysterical relief laughter. Some hugged, some wiped tears. The woman who had been sobbing kissed her husband's hands over and over. I breathed for the first time in what felt like an hour. Erisco, bloody and pale, managed to walk down the aisle, holding on to seats. People reached out to him as he passed, touching his arm, thanking him, praising him like he'd just saved all our lives. And he had, just by keeping us calm, just by staying on his feet. We landed in Harrison, New Jersey, my family's nearest airport, 40 minutes late. When the wheels touched the ground, the entire cabin erupted into applause so loud it echoed. As we exited, I turned back and said to Erisco, "Thank you. Seriously." He smiled weakly. "Get home safe?" "Okay, I will," I said, and I meant it because something changed in me that day. I'd looked death in the face and lived long enough to walk away from it. I still hate flying. Probably always will, but I don't hide from my life anymore. I don't waste time. I don't put things off. Almost dying has a way of waking you up. And sometimes when I think about that flight, about the way strangers held hands and prayed together like a single heartbeat, I remember something the woman across the aisle had said during the worst of it. If we make it, this is going to change somebody's life forever. She was right. It changed mine. I never thought a single night could rewrite everything I believed about the skies I worked so hard to understand. But before I get to that night, the one that's lived rent-free in my skull for nearly 30 years, I need to tell you how I even ended up in that tower in the first place. I grew up in a town outside Minneapolis, in a small neighborhood full of pickup trucks, barking dogs, and the low hum of planes flying overhead. My mom used to joke that I knew the sound of each plane before I knew the alphabet. Every Sunday, my dad would take me to the perimeter fence near the airport. We'd sit on the hood of his old Ford Bronco, sipping watered-down lemonade while jets screamed overhead. "Look at that," he'd say, pointing upward. "Precision, buddy. There's nothing cooler in the sky." He wasn't wrong. I wanted to be a pilot so damn bad it hurt. Posters on my walls, model planes hanging from fishing wire on the ceiling. I was obsessed, but life has a way of kicking you right in the throat when you're young. My eyesight tanked in middle school. One doctor visit, and boom, my dream evaporated. I still remember how quiet the car ride home was. Dad finally said, "Hey, flying ain't the only way to work the sky. Controllers run the show, kid." It stuck with me, so I chased it. College, aviation studies, endless simulations, stress tests, psych evals, sleepless nights, all for a seat in a tower directing metal giants through the sky. By 1997, I landed a job not at Minneapolis, but in Canyon Ridge International Airport, a mid-sized airport in a western desert. It sat between endless miles of sand and a growing city that never quite decided if it wanted to be Phoenix or Vegas. I was still young, still learning, still terrified of making one wrong call. And on night shifts, you're basically running on caffeine and sheer obligation. Which brings me to July 12th, 1997, the night everything went sideways. I was scheduled for another graveyard shift from midnight to 8 a.m. The kind where your brain feels like a microwaved burrito halfway through, and you question every career decision you've ever made. The tower lights buzzed overhead. Those faint flickering fluorescents that make you feel like you're inside a convenience store at 3 a.m. My supervisor that night was Linton Hayes, a 50-something guy with a permanent 5 o'clock shadow and a voice that always sounded like he'd smoked a carton on the walk-in. "You good, kid?" he asked as I clocked in. "Yeah," I said, though my voice cracked like I was lying to a teacher. He gave me a look. "Grab a coffee. Don't half-ass tonight. Weather's clear, but traffic's weird." He didn't elaborate. He never did. I went to the back of the tower and poured the strongest coffee known to mankind. It tasted like someone burnt a tire and mixed the ashes with hot water. But hell, it worked. The night was calm. Usual cargo flights, a few late arrivals, radio chatter that ranged from monotonous to downright boring, just the desert wind tapping against the glass of the tower and the steady beep-beep of radar sweeps. Around 2:17 a.m., Linton stepped out for a smoke break. It was just me and Rhea, another controller who always had earbuds in, listening to indie bands nobody else had heard of. "Yo," she said, sliding her chair back. "I'm running an equipment check downstairs. You good solo for like 10 minutes? "Go," I answer. And so it was just me. Offie, radar, radio, normal until it wasn't. At 2:23 a.m., a blip popped onto the lower right sector of my radar screen. No aircraft tag, no transponder code, just a blip. Moving fast, I leaned closer, squinting. Usually a new aircraft pops in and immediately displays a code, something like CR231 or WN517, telling you who they are, where they came from, their altitude, their speed. This one, blank. I tried switching radar filters. Still blank. I tapped the console lightly, not enough to damage anything, but just enough to feel like I was doing something. The blip moved again. This time it jumped like it skipped several miles in under a second. I felt a cold ripple go through me. I'd seen radar anomalies, weather echoes, ghost targets. This wasn't that. I tuned to the frequency the aircraft should have been on. Unidentified aircraft entering Canyon Ridge approach sector. "This is tower control. Do you copy?" Not normal static. This strange, broken metallic grinding sound, like someone dragging aluminum across concrete. I instinctively pulled the headphones off one ear. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. I checked the channel open. I checked the volume normal. I checked neighboring frequencies, so why the hell was only that one screaming? I switched to the emergency car channel. I'm here to help with any questions or information you might need. How can I assist you today? My palms started sweating. Controllers don't panic, but my gut twisted all the same. I stood and walked to the glass, staring out over the dark desert. There should have been lights. Even private aircraft have strobes. Just inky black sky. The blip stopped. Dead stop like someone hit pause on a DDD. Aircraft don't stop midair, not without immediately beginning to fall. Then the blip slid sideways, not curved, not angled, not manking. Perfect horizontal movement, and fast. At least 1,000 miles per hour, maybe more. There was no sonic boom, nothing to indicate sound barrier friction. I whispered to myself, "That's impossible." My throat tightened. Every instinct I'd trained for years screamed that something was wrong, terribly wrong. I tried the radio again. Unidentified aircraft. This is tower control. If you're experiencing radio failure, squawk ident. Not even a flicker on the radar. Instead, the blip froze again, then shot upward so fast I almost fell backward. Altitude jumped thousands of feet instantly. What the hell are you? The hairs on my arm stood straight up. Rhea climbed the stairs back into the tower and saw the look on my face. Hey, you look like you just saw a ghost. I pointed to the radar. She leaned in. What am I looking at? That. That what? The one with no tag. Where's its transponder? I have no idea, she frowned. Could be military. No, I said. Nothing moves like that. Just then, the screeching noise returned through the radio. Rhea flinched. What the hell is that? I don't know. It's been doing that since it showed up. She bit her lip. Should we notify Linton? Before I could answer, the blip disappeared, gone like it had never been there. The radar sweep continued, silent and empty. Rhea looked at me, eyebrows raised. Did you record that? Yeah, I said, even though my voice shook. It's logged. What do we do with it? I hesitated, because here's the truth. I'm here to provide information and answer any questions you have. If you have any other questions or need assistance, feel free to ask. It drags you into meetings where people speak polite corporate language that basically means, are you sure you're not losing it? But still, protocol is protocol. I filled out an anomaly report. Aircraft unknown. Transponder, none. Radio contact, failed. Visual confirmation, none. Radar behavior, non-standard. Noise distorted, high-pitch interference. Duration, approximately 3 minutes. Resolution target vanished. When Winton came back, he skimmed the report, scratched his cheek, and said, all right, filing it under non-standard radar echo. That wasn't an echo, kid, he said gruffly. You don't want to start sounding like Art Bell on the radio. Trust me, these things happen. Heat bursts, software glitches, happens all the damn time. Not like this, I insisted. He looked at me with tired eyes. And like that, it was over. At least officially, but unofficially, it never left me. 26 years passed. Different airports, different towers, different aircraft. But that night never stopped gnawing at me. Last year at a controllers conference in Denver over drinks, I brought it up casually to a retired technician. He froze mid-sip. What year did you say? 1977. I said July. His face went pale. We had reports, he said quietly, from other facilities. Same night. What kind of behavior? He stared into his glass. Movement that wasn't aviation. Not anyone's. My stomach dropped. Did anyone ever figure it out? He shook his head. Some things you're not supposed to dig into. I felt that same cold ripple I felt in the tower decades before. Because deep down, I knew whatever I saw that night, whatever moved the way no aircraft should move, whatever screamed through my headset with that piercing metallic noise, it wasn't a glitch. It wasn't weather. It wasn't human. The sky doesn't always belong to us. I still scan it some nights, still replay that moment over and over. And even though I've spent my life guiding planes safely through the air, there's one thing I know with absolute certainty. Something else was up there, and it wasn't supposed to be. I've flown more times in my life than I can remember, but I've always hated airports. The lines, the rush, the weird pressure in the air that makes everyone act half crazy. It just never sat right with me. Still, my job requires constant travel, so flying became a miserable routine I learned to live with before everything went to hell. My friends always joked that I was cursed when it came to travel. Flights delayed, bags lost, seats double booked, the whole deal. But nothing, absolutely nothing comes close to what happened on my way out of Red Mesa, a dusty little country in North Africa where my company had just completed a 6-week engineering contract. You won't find Red Mesa on a lot of tourist lists. It's rugged, beautiful, loud, chaotic, and full of smells that hit you even when you're not ready. Markets where spices blend with car exhaust. Alleyways where grilled meat mixes with trash. Fancy hotels with lemon-scented lobbies right next to dusty side streets that smell like diesel and hot sand. That was my life for 6 weeks. But the part that mattered most, the part that screwed me, is the region we stayed in. Darat province, known for 2 things. Wild mountain scenery and a drug-running trade so common locals talk about it the same way Americans talk about traffic. I didn't care about all that. I was there for work, and by the end, all I wanted was a shower that didn't run brown water, and a night of sleep without some rooster screaming at 4 a.m. Backstory you need to know. My name is Kellen Ward. I'm 31. Born in Indiana, moved to Colorado for college, mechanical engineer, travel a lot for field inspections. My stomach a damn liability. I've had bad reactions to food my entire life. One wrong spice and my gut acts like it's trying to revolt. My older sister calls it porcelain toilet syndrome. Funny until you're stuck 5,000 miles from home with local street food fighting a civil war inside you. I knew better than to eat from the roadside grill outside our hotel on the last night. But I was exhausted, dehydrated, and stupid hungry. I ate it anyway. That one decision changed everything. I arrived at Darat International Airport 4 hours before my flight. My coworker, Soren Cade, came with me. He's tall, sarcastic, always wearing a hat that looks too small for his head. He kept checking the departures board like it personally owed him money. "You all right, man?" he asked, staring at me as I crouched with one hand on my stomach. "You look like you fought a blender and lost." "I'll live," I muttered. "Just need to get home." "You say that every trip," he chuckled. But his smile faded when I didn't laugh back. "Damn, you really don't look good." I didn't. Sweat soaked through my shirt, even though the airport AC was blasting. The bad street food was staging a riot in my intestines, and the rioters were winning. Security lines wrapped around the corner. People argued. A baby screamed. An airport staff member shouted instructions in a loudspeaker that screeched every time he spoke. I leaned against a pillar and groaned. Soren nudged me. "Drink water, dude. You're gonna pass out." I took a sip. My stomach twisted so sharply I nearly doubled over. Soren raised his eyebrows. I rushed off, weaving through travelers like a drunk pinball. I was maybe 15 feet away from the restroom door when "Sir, you with the blue backpack," a security officer with a sharp jawline and reflective sunglasses approached. His name tag read Officer Trick. "Yes," I said. "You flew in from that province. You stayed in the Northern District. You look nervous." "I just need the bathroom," I muttered. He narrowed his eyes. "And your stomach hurts." He exchanged a look with another officer behind him. Fucking thing. He thought I was a drug mule. "Sir, please come with us." "Sure, here you go." Officer Trick said, gesturing toward a side hallway. "I really need the restroom," I said, voice cracking. "You may use one," he replied, "after we clear you." "Clear me?" Soren stepped forward. "Whoa, hold on, he's sick, man. He hasn't been right since yesterday. He didn't smuggle anything." TK ignored him. His partner stepped between us. "This isn't necessary," I insisted. "I swear to God, I just ate something bad." Tar folded his arms. "People say that all the time." That's when I saw them. 2 officers walking toward us with a white shepherd, a sniffer dog. My stomach turned to ice. "Ah, come on," I whispered. "This is insane." The dog sniffed my backpack, then my shoes. Then it sniffed my belt area long enough for all 3 officers to exchange a look. The dog sat down. TK smirked. Positive indication. "No," I stepped back. "No, it's because I smell weird." "Okay, I've been sweating like crazy." "Narcotics do not care about sweat," he replied. "Sir, please remove your backpack." My heart hammered so loud it felt like it echoed. Foreign whispered, "Bro, calm down, they'll search find nothing and you'll be fine." He was wrong. They found nothing. And that was the problem. They escorted me through a windowless metal door into a cold, fluorescent-lit room. A single table, 3 chairs. A camera mounted high in the corner. An officer I hadn't seen before entered. Taller, broader, older. His nameplate said, Supervisor Halim. "Mr. Ward," he said in flawless English. "Sure, here it is." "Do you know why you're here?" "Yes, because your dog thinks my sweat smells like cocaine." He didn't laugh. "Your flight leaves in 90 minutes, he said. "But you will not board until we confirm you are not carrying narcotics internally." I felt the blood drain from my face. No, I didn't swallow anything." Halim nodded slowly. "That is what many say." He raised a hand. "Please sit." I could barely breathe. He slid a file across the table. "Travelers from Darat province," he said, "are statistically more likely to smuggle hashish within the body." "I'm an engineer," I said. "I do inspections on turbine equipment." "You have stomach pain from food poisoning." "You are sweating because you're anxious." "You are pale." "I'm American. We don't tan." He almost smiled at that, but his face hardened again. "Stand, please." He walked behind me. "Then lift your shirt. You've got to be kidding." "You refused earlier," he said, "because I was in the middle of a security line." "Lift your shirt." He examined my torso as if expecting to see a zipper where drugs were stored. Then he leaned closer, staring directly at my abdomen. "I'm here to help with any questions or topics you'd like to discuss. If you need assistance with something else, feel free to ask. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors." Halim gestured toward another door, a heavy metal one. My heart stopped. Inside was a stainless steel toilet with no handle, no privacy, no stall. Just a camera mounted above, pointed directly at it. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. I can't do this in front of anyone. No one will touch you," he said, "unless you make us." That "unless" nearly made me faint. My stomach cramped so hard I had no choice. I whispered, "Turn around, please." The officer stepped back just far enough that they could still watch. Tears blurred my vision. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. He leaned down, glared into the stainless steel bowl, then looked at me with an expression I will never forget. Half disgust, half realization. "You were telling the truth," he muttered. "No, I croaked. "They let me clean up. They gave me water. Then they released me back to the departure gate, where Soren nearly tackled me with relief. I'm here to help. If you have any questions or need assistance, feel free to ask." I was too busy not dying. We barely made it to the gate before boarding began. As we lined up, Officer Halim approached us, hands behind his back. "Ward," he said coldly. "My apologies for the inconvenience." "That wasn't an inconvenience," I said. "That was a nightmare." He gave a small shrug. "We must protect our borders." "No," I snapped, surprising even myself. "You just wanted to make an example out of someone." His jaw tensed, but he didn't argue. Instead, he extended a document. "Your clearance slip. You will not be stopped again today." I snatched it out of his hand. Soren and I boarded without another word. I collapsed into my seat and pressed my head back, eyes closed. Soren whispered, "Bro, you're a legend. You single-handedly traumatized 3 security officers." I groaned. "I don't want to talk about it." "Seriously, though, you okay?" "No, and I probably won't be for a long time." He nodded. "Fair." When the plane took off, I finally felt the tension leave my body. But something in me had changed. I wasn't just embarrassed. I wasn't just angry. I was afraid because for the first time in my life, I realized how quickly and how easily your freedom can be taken. Just because someone thinks you look nervous, just because you need a bathroom, just because someone decides you fit a pattern. And the worst part, there was nothing I could have done to stop it. Back home in Colorado, my sister hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. "You look like you came back from war," she said. "I kinda did," I muttered. For weeks, I had nightmares of the interrogation room. The officers' faces, the cold metal toilet, the humiliation, the fear of being trapped in a foreign jail for something I didn't do. I still fly for work, but I avoid certain regions now, and I never ever eat street food before flying. I never thought something as normal as boarding a plane could change the way my brain works forever. I guess it's important you know who I used to be before all this. I wasn't always the guy who tenses up at the sound of jet engines overhead, or checks the sky like someone checking for storm clouds. I used to fly constantly. I worked as a corporate financial analyst for a New York-based venture advisory firm, and every month I'd hop from city to city, pitching growth models to whoever had enough money to pretend to care. Back then, I lived alone in a small apartment in Jersey City. I didn't own a car, didn't even need one. I liked the speed of things. Subways, taxis, airports. The idea that any random morning I could be on the opposite side of the country by lunchtime made me feel like my life had motion. My parents used to tell me I burn out, especially my mom. "You're running too fast, kid," she'd say whenever we FaceTimed. But flying made me feel important. It made me feel like the guy who had places to be. And then came the flight that made me swear I'd rather grind through 28 hours behind a steering wheel than spend 2 more minutes at 30,000 feet. It was the last week of August. Heat wave, humidity so thick it felt like some invisible force was trying to choke the city. I'd been assigned to pitch at an energy sector summit in Phoenix. My boss, Crawford, a guy whose haircut cost more than my rent, kept saying stuff like, "This is our shot to get in with the Western investors. You blow this, you're done flying for a while." If only he knew what that comment ended up meaning. The flight was supposed to be simple. Newark to Albuquerque, short layover, and then Phoenix. Only on that particular morning, Newark was a mess. The terminal AC was busted, and people were sweating like pigs at a county fair. Luggage belts jammed, TSA lines backed up around corners, kids crying, people snapping at each other. The boarding area felt like a pot that was about to boil over. The moment I walked up, I noticed the guy who would later become central to everything. A man sitting alone near the corner windows. Medium build, maybe mid-40s, wearing a loose gray hoodie. Even though the terminal felt like a sauna, he wasn't looking at his phone, wasn't reading, wasn't sleeping. He was just staring straight ahead at the tarmac with a fixed expression, like his mind was stuck on some loop he couldn't escape. I don't know why I noticed him. Maybe because he seemed like the only quiet thing in a loud room. But whatever. People are weird in airports. I checked in, grabbed a disgusting $8 airport coffee, and sat a few seats away from a mother trying to entertain her toddler with animal crackers. My shirt was sticking to my back from the heat. My eyelids were heavy from being up since 4:30 a.m., and all I could think about was how badly I wanted this trip to be over. When the speaker crackled and the gate agent announced pre-boarding, I could hear the collective groan ripple through the crowd. "God, finally," someone muttered behind me. I grabbed my bag, scanned my ticket, and walked down the jet bridge. I didn't know it then, but that would be the last time in my life I'd ever walk onto a plane without shaking. I found my seat 14, a window seat, just the way I liked it. I settled in, shoved my backpack under the seat, and put my folder of pitch notes in the seat pocket. The sun was blasting through the window, making everything an ugly, washed-out gold. A few minutes later, the man from the terminal, the one in the gray hoodie, walked on. Not fast, not slow, just like he was floating through molasses. I remember thinking he looked pale, like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were red, not from crying, but from something deeper, something I couldn't place. Then he ended up sitting 2 rows behind me on the opposite side of the aisle. I only know that because he dropped his boarding pass, and the guy in front of him bent down to hand it back. His name, printed in bold black letters, was Lauren Gates. Unique name, one you don't forget easily. He barely looked at the guy returning it, just nodded once almost mechanically, and sat in his seat. I put my headphones in and closed my eyes. We pushed back from the gate 10 minutes late, which wasn't unusual. The cabin lights dimmed slightly as the plane taxied. A flight attendant, a woman with a name tag that read Sloan, walked past and tapped my shoulder. "Sir, seatbelt please." "Yeah, sorry," I mumbled, buckling it. Engine revs. Deep rumbling. The plane lined up on the runway. I've flown enough to recognize the difference between normal engine noise and a stressed one. But that morning, something sounded off. A vibration, a harsher whine. Then again, maybe I was just exhausted. The engines roared, the plane sped forward, and we lifted smoothly off the ground. Everything seemed normal, until it wasn't. Maybe 10 minutes into the climb, I heard something. Something faint, but sharp. A single metallic snap. Not loud, not like an explosion, more like the sound of a tension cable snapping under strain. I opened my eyes, looked around. Most people didn't notice a thing. A girl next to me was scrolling TikTok. A businessman across the aisle was tapping away on his laptop like he was coding his way out of hell. Then I saw the flight attendant, Sloane. She had heard it. She froze mid-aisle, just stalled there like a statue. Her head tilted slightly, her jaw tensed, and then her eyes moved toward the left wing. My chest tightened. "Everything okay?" I asked quietly. She forced a smile. One of those fake ones people give when they know something's wrong but don't want to admit it. "Yeah, just turbulence starting sooner than I expected." But there wasn't any turbulence. Not a single bump. She hurried toward the front, practically speedwalking. My stomach dropped. I unbuckled and leaned toward the window, sliding the shade up just a crack. That's when I saw it. A faint shimmer of smoke trailing from the back of the left engine, like heat waves rising off asphalt. I whispered. The businessman next to me leaned over. "What is it?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He leaned closer and saw it for himself. His face drained. Oh, hell no. People behind us started whispering. Row by row, the panic spread, like a slow fuse burning toward a pile of dynamite. Then someone shouted from behind, "Hey, something's wrong with the damn engine!" And just like that, the fuse hit the pile. Voices rose. Whispers turned to frantic questions. Someone across the aisle started crying. A man in a baseball cap kept hitting the call button like it was a detonator. The plane kept climbing higher and higher, like nothing was wrong. But something was very wrong. And then that guy, Lauren Gates, stood up. Just stood straight up like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. Before the nearest flight attendant could get to him, Lauren spoke. Not loudly, just calmly. Terrifyingly calm. "You all need to breathe," he said. "Panicking won't change what's coming." People turned toward him, some angry, some confused, some scared. A woman 3 seats behind me snapped, "You're making it worse." He didn't even look at her. He was staring at the wing. Not panicked, not shocked, not surprised, just resigned. I remember thinking, why does he look like he expected this? The plane jolted slightly, just a little shudder, and a few passengers screamed. Then Lauren said something that has burned into my brain forever. "It's the compressor. The engine's starving. That smoke isn't from a fire. It's from the pressure drop. It's going to cascade." Sloane rushed over and grabbed his arm. "Sir, please take your seat." He looked at her with the saddest expression I've ever seen. "You can't stop what's coming." Sloane's voice trembled. "Sir, I'm asking you one more time. Not because she asked, but because the plane suddenly dipped hard, a drop that felt like someone kicked the floor out from beneath us." People screamed. A soda can flew into the aisle. Somebody yelled a prayer. The captain's voice came on, shaky, but trying to sound professional. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing a mechanical issue with our left engine. Please remain seated. We're diverting to Indianapolis International. Flight crew, take your seats." Crew, take your seats. That's the phrase you never want to hear because it means the pilot expects the situation to get worse. The plane banked left hard. My shoulder slammed against the wall. The guy next to me cursed under his breath. Then we heard it. Another snap. Louder this time. And the engine. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. A soft exhale, like someone watching something inevitable. "It's happening again," he whispered. What the hell did that mean? I turned toward him. What do you mean again? Have you been in something like this before? His eyes locked with mine, and I swear on my life, his pupils were shaking. I try to stay off planes, he said, but no matter what route I take, it keeps finding me. I felt the hair rise on my neck. What keeps finding you? He didn't answer with words. He lifted his hand and pointed, not at the engine, not at the wing, but at the space just beyond it, like he was pointing at the sky itself. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. The rubber smell blasted my nose. The intercom flickered, static hissing. The captain tried to speak, but the sound cut out, and then the entire cabin lights went dark. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. But underneath all that, I heard Lauren whispering something. Not praying, not panicking, more like reciting. It doesn't want the plane, it wants the fear. Every time I fly, I grabbed his arm. What are you talking about? What does that even mean? He looked at me like a doctor about to give a terminal diagnosis. You don't feel it. He didn't answer. He just turned his head toward the window, and very slowly, very deliberately, he reached up and lifted the shade. I wish he hadn't. Outside, just beyond the burning engine, something moved. Not a shape, not a creature I can describe, not anything that belongs in the sky. It was like the air itself was bending around. Something like heat distortion, but alive. A distortion. A subtle undulation in the air, mimicking a slow, deliberate reach. The sight of it sent a visceral dread seizing me, a sudden nausea threatening to steal my composure. My perception itself seemed to falter, unable to grasp its true nature. But my fear did. My fear understood perfectly. No, I whispered. No, no, no. What the hell is that? Lauren closed the shade. It follows fear, he said. It feeds on it. My breath hitched. What does it do? He swallowed hard. The plane was dropping fast. The pressure in my ears was brutal. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. Out of nowhere, the plane steadied. Not perfectly, but enough that the screaming quieted by half a degree. The captain's voice came back strained and hoarse. Heads down. The line cut. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. His eyes glisten because it sees you better when you're terrified. The plane roared downward. My whole body shook. People were screaming the way people scream when they truly believe these are their last seconds. I slammed my head down, braced, and impact. A bone-rattling, metal-shredding, soul-tearing impact. The world flipped. The cabin tore. Luggage exploded from bins. Someone crashed into the back of my seat. Glass shattered. My vision went white. I don't know how long we skidded. It could have been 5 seconds. It could have been a lifetime. And then stillness. A horrible ringing silence. I lifted my head, shaking uncontrollably. People were moaning, crying, calling for help. Smoke hissed through the cabin. Emergency lights flickered. But when I turned to look for Lauren, his seat was empty. Completely empty. The buckles still clipped together, like he had evaporated, like he had never been there at all. Emergency crews pulled us out one by one. I had a concussion, 2 cracked ribs, and a nasty gash across my forehead. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was when investigators interviewed survivors, because I asked the very first question. What happened to the man in the gray hoodie? The one named Lauren Gates. The investigator frowned. The guy sitting in 16C. He was talking to people before the drop. He was right behind. The investigator shook his head. Sir, there was no one assigned to 16C. That seat was empty when we recovered the manifest. Nobody saw a man matching that description. My blood ran cold. No, that's impossible. I spoke to him. The investigator gave me a sympathetic look. Extreme stress can cause vivid hallucinations. You're not the first crash survivor to experience something like that. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. I know what moved outside that window. A week later, lying in a hospital bed, the news played a report. The reporter said, "This marks the third engine failure crash in the last 6 months involving aircraft flying within the same Eastern Air Corridor." Third, 6 months, same corridor. I turned off the TV. I understood then. It wasn't the engine that failed, and it weren't the plane that was targeted. It was the fear. The thing Lauren said was following him. Maybe it wasn't only following him. Maybe it was following the skies, and maybe it still is. I haven't flown since. I drive everywhere now, even across the country. Because whatever that thing was, whatever it wanted, I'm terrified that if I ever step onto another plane, it'll remember me. I never planned on becoming the kind of person who dreads airports. But then again, life has a funny way of reshaping who you think you are. When I was a kid, I loved everything about flying. My mom used to joke that I could identify aircraft types the way other kids identified Pokemon. She'd take me to the small regional airport outside our town in Missouri, buy us hot chocolate, and we'd sit on the hood of our car, watching the jets land in long, sweeping arcs. Back then, airports felt magical. Now they feel like a trap. Not because of flying. No, I'm not afraid of planes. I'm afraid of people. And that fear started the night everything went wrong in Tulsa. But I'll get to that. What I lived through on that Halloween flight changed the way I breathe. Literally, the way I breathe forever. People at my job know me as the guy who doesn't take vacations. That's because vacations mean airports. Airports mean crowds. Sure, here's the text. And crowds mean memories I try not to revisit. 2 years ago, I flew home after a work convention in Gallup. I sat next to a man who looked perfectly normal. Khaki pants, polo shirt, wedding ring, the whole suburban starter pack. Halfway through the flight, he had a heart attack right next to me. I did CPR until the flight attendant dragged me back. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. I'm here to help with any questions or provide information you might need. If you have anything you'd like to talk about or ask, feel free to let me know. My therapist insists the only way to fix trauma is to face it. Exposure therapy, she calls it. I call it a bad idea wearing a lab coat. But she pushed, and eventually I gave in. That's why I was in the Kansas City airport on Halloween night, carrying a backpack and anxiety packed tighter than my clothes. My flight, SouthJet 309, was supposed to leave at 6:55 p.m. It was 1:40 a.m. when the speaker crackled overhead, and the gate agent said, "SouthJet 309 to Portland will now begin boarding. Zone 1, please come forward." Passengers clapped sarcastically. Someone yelled, "Took you long enough." Another muttered something about suing the airline. I just sighed and stood up. The airport was nearly empty. The cleaning crew had started mopping the terrazzo floors, and the smell of lemon disinfectant clung to everything. All the nearby restaurants had been closed for hours. Metal shutters pulled down. Chairs flipped on tables. Lights off. The only people left were a couple dozen of us. Most were families who decided to sit together toward the back of the plane. I preferred solitude, so I always picked a front row window seat when I could. This time, I didn't get a say. Right before boarding, the gate agent, a tired-looking woman with a bun that had given up fighting gravity, called out, "Sir, in the black jacket." I pointed at myself. "Yeah, can you step over here a sec?" "Great. Random screening again, or worse, seat reassignment." She lowered her voice. "We're asking everyone to consolidate seating. We had some late route adjustments." "What does that mean?" She forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Just a procedural thing. We'd appreciate it if you sat with the rest of the passengers." Middle section, rows 14 through 18. I didn't argue. I was tired. I just wanted to get through the flight. And honestly, I didn't want to be alone. Big mistake. The plane looked ordinary enough when I boarded. Stale air, overhead fans humming. The faint smell of burnt coffee. Halloween decorations at the gate did nothing to lighten the mood. Paper bats drooping from strings, like they were exhausted too. I found my assigned row. 3 passengers were already seated. An older woman reading a church bulletin.
A teenager wearing huge headphones and a guy who looked like he lived in baseball caps.
I nodded at them. The older woman smiled. Headphones kid didn't look up.
Baseball cap just gave a tiny upward chin nod. I squeezed into my seat.
The plane filled slowly. People looked drained, wryed, slumped, annoyed. No one had the energy to talk.
The flight attendant came down the aisle. A tall man with neat hair and a stiff smile. He paused when he reached our row. His eyes flicked the passengers behind us. Then he asked quietly,
"Is everyone comfortable here?"
We nodded, confused.
He leaned in closer to me.
"If anything feels strange during the flight, press your call button immediately."
What?
What do you mean strange?
But he was already moving again, pushing the service cart down the aisle. The teenager finally pulled off one headphone.
"Yo, did he just say strange?"
"Yeah," I muttered. "Weird, right?" Baseball cap shrugged. Older woman whispered, "Lord protect us."
She made the sign of the cross.
I laughed nervously. She didn't. We took off at 2:23 a.m. The runway lights strip. The cabin dimmed to a soft blue glow.
I closed my eyes and tried to breathe normally.
In, out, in, out.
My therapist's voice echoed in my head.
"You're safe. You're grounded. Nothing bad will happen.
Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors." At first, I thought he was sleeping, but then I looked closer.
His body was propped unnaturally straight, as if something were holding him upright.
His arms were limp at his sides, palms turned upward.
His head tilted slightly as though someone had positioned it that way, not how someone falls asleep naturally.
Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors.
"Don't say that,"
baseball cap snapped. The flight attendant appeared again, faster than seemed normal.
He approached the motionless man with slow, deliberate steps. He touched his shoulder.
Then he didn't move,
Didn't speak. After a long, uncomfortable pause, he pulled a small oxygen mask from his pocket and knelt. The older woman clutched my arm. "He's not breathing," she murmured.
I felt a cold pulse run down my spine.
The flight attendant stood, expression locked in something between strain and resignation.
Then he looked at me, not at the teenager, not at the baseball cap, not at the older woman,
directly at me, and shook his head as if to say, "Don't talk.
Don't panic. Don't ask questions."
He dragged a thin privacy curtain across row 19. That should have been the end of it. But the cabin was too quiet, too still. Every hair on my arm stood up, and that's when the noises started. It happened about 40 minutes into the flight. A heavy thud from inside the lavatory beside row 18.
It wasn't a passenger falling.
It wasn't turbulence. It was deliberate. The kind of thud that comes from someone or something throwing weight against a door.
Baseball cap turned around sharply.
"Yo, what the hell was that?" The teenager pulled off both headphones. The older woman whispered prayers under her breath. I swallowed.
Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors.
No one had gone into that lavatory since takeoff. And then came the third noise. Not a thud, a scrape, a long, slow, dragging scrape across the thin metal door like fingernails or bone.
The flight attendant rushed down the aisle,
nearly slipping. He blocked the lavatory door with his body as though afraid someone might burst through it. He shouted, "Everyone stay seated.
Do not get up. Do not approach this area."
People gasped. Someone screamed, "What's happening?"
The teenager looked at me panicked.
I whispered, "Something's in there." The attendant tried the door handle.
It didn't budge.
He tried again. Then it clicked open on its own slowly, softly, and a cold gust of air rolled out. Even though airplanes don't have dracs like that, he froze.
We all froze. The lavatory was empty, completely empty. But the mirror was cracked, and written across the glass, swirled through condensation, were the words, "Let me out."
The older woman fainted.
Baseball cap swore.
The teenager whispered, "Hell no, bro. Hell no." I pressed my hand to my chest. My heartbeat was going insane.
And the flight attendant, his voice trembling, closed the door and locked it again from the outside. Then he made an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. We're experiencing a minor technical issue. Please stay seated." Everyone knew it. The curtain around row 19 shifted on its own. A bulge pushed outward, something pressing from inside the curtain. The flight attendant froze mid-step. Everyone watched. The bulge moved again. Then the curtain trembled as if someone behind it were trying to stand. The teenager whispered, "Bro, he was dead. Dead people don't move." The bulge pushed harder. The metal seat frame squeaked. The older woman stirred awake and whimpered, "Lord have mercy." The curtain slid aside. Row 19 was empty. The dead man was gone. "Sir, sit down." I stood up instinctively. I don't know why. Maybe to run, maybe to look. Maybe because my fight or flight kicked in and chose neither. Just panic. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. A man from 2 rows back yelled, "Where is he now?" Her baby started crying. People began shouting. The plane rocked slightly from all the commotion. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. The flight attendant shouted, "Everyone get back." No one moved. No one could. The latch popped open. Just a crack. A pale fingertip appeared. Then another. Then a whole hand. Grayish, clawing, trembling. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. Baseball cap ran to the emergency exit, only to be tackled by another passenger screaming, "Yo, kill us all." The overhead bin shook violently. The pale hand gripped the edge. Knuckles cracked loudly as it pulled. The bin door creaked open wider. I don't know what possessed me, but I grabbed the flight attendant's arm. "What the hell is happening?" he whispered, voice trembling. He died on the previous flight segment alone. No family, no ID. We thought he was just unclaimed. But when we tried to move him, his body twitched. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. The dead man fell out, but he didn't hit the seats. He landed on his feet. He stood hunched, head tilted unnaturally, neck bent as if broken. His skin was waxy white, lips blue, eyes clouded like old milk. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe. He leaned sideways, joints popping like brittle twigs. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. His legs dragged, feet skidding on the carpet, like he was trying to remember how to walk. Each movement was broken, spasmodic like a puppet with tangled strings. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. I stumbled backward, tripping over my bag. Why is he pointing at me? The flight attendant grabbed my shoulder. Because you sat in his seat on the last flight. He died in 14C. That's the seat you were supposed to take before I moved you. My stomach flipped. He thinks I'm him. No, the attendant whispered. He thinks you replaced him. The dead man lurched closer, steps echoing like dull blows against the floor. Passengers pressed themselves against the windows and seatbacks. He reached for me. His fingers brushed my sleeve. Ice cold, stiff, lifeless, yet moving. I screamed, "Stop! I didn't take anything from you." His hand closed around my wrist. Cold shot up my arm. I saw flashes. A hospital hallway, an empty motel room. A man dying alone, unclaimed, unnoticed.
He wasn't moving because he wanted revenge. He was moving because he was lost. He didn't know he was dead, and he didn't want to be alone again. The plane hit turbulence. A violent jolt. The dead man lost balance. His grip slipped. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. His body struck the floor with a hollow, awful thud and didn't move again. Not an inch. The cabin went silent. The flight attendant knelt slowly and checked for a pulse, even though we all knew. He whispered, "He's gone again." We landed in Portland 40 minutes later. Paramedics came. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. No one could explain how he moved. No one tried. When I walked out of the terminal, I looked up at the night sky. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of airports anymore. I was afraid of being forgotten, just like him.